For years, we've been told there's a simple rule when it comes to debt. Credit card debt is bad, but debt used to buy assets is good. A mortgage is considered good debt. A car loan is often justified because you need transportation. Even financing rental property is frequently promoted as the fastest path to wealth. But what if the entire idea of good debt is missing one critical piece of the puzzle? What if debt itself isn't good or bad, but simply a financial tool that magnifies whatever decision you make? The truth is that debt doesn't create wealth. It creates leverage. Leverage can accelerate gains when everything goes according to plan, but it also magnifies losses when life doesn't cooperate. A financed asset that appreciates faster than the total cost of borrowing may help build wealth. But if that same asset declines in value, generates unexpected expenses, or ties up too much of your monthly cash flow, the exact same debt becomes a financial anchor instead of a stepping stone. Too often, people focus only on what they're buying instead of what they're sacrificing. Every monthly payment represents money that can't be invested elsewhere. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar that never has the opportunity to compound inside an investment account. That's the hidden cost of debt that rarely gets discussed. The real question isn't whether debt is attached to an asset. The question is whether that debt improves your overall financial position after accounting for interest, risk, taxes, maintenance, insurance, and lost investment opportunities. Today we're going to break down the myth of good debt, explain why borrowing isn't automatically a wealth-building strategy, and show you how to evaluate debt like an investor instead of a consumer. Debt is often misunderstood because people associate it with the thing they're buying rather than the obligation they're creating. A house doesn't magically become a good investment because you financed it. A rental property doesn't guarantee positive cash flow because someone on social media called real estate the greatest wealth builder of all time. The debt itself doesn't improve the investment. It simply increases your exposure to its outcome. Think of debt as a financial amplifier. If you buy an appreciating asset that significantly outperforms your borrowing costs, leverage can accelerate wealth. But the reverse is equally true. If the asset underperforms, your losses are amplified because interest payments continue regardless of what the asset is worth. Cars provide one of the clearest examples. A vehicle begins depreciating almost immediately after purchase, yet borrowers continue paying interest on an asset that becomes less valuable every month. Even though transportation is essential, financing an expensive vehicle stretches cash flow while the underlying asset steadily loses value. Calling that good debt simply because it provides utility ignores the mathematics involved. Real estate can experience similar problems. Property values don't always rise. Markets cool. Insurance premiums increase. Property taxes climb. Major repairs appear unexpectedly. If appreciation slows while ownership costs rise, even a home can become a significant drag on long-term wealth. The lesson is simple. Debt magnifies outcomes. Before borrowing, ask yourself whether you could still comfortably manage the payments if the asset performed worse than expected. If the answer is no, the issue isn't whether the debt is good. It's whether the risk is appropriate for your financial situation. When people calculate the cost of debt, they usually look at the monthly payment. That's understandable because it's the number that affects the household budget every month. But financially, the payment is only part of the equation. Interest is the obvious cost, but opportunity cost is often much larger. Imagine paying hundreds of dollars every month toward interest over several decades. That money isn't simply disappearing. It's money that could have been invested into diversified assets capable of compounding for years. Compound growth works both ways. When your money compounds for you, wealth accelerates. When interest compounds against you, building wealth becomes significantly harder. There's also the psychological cost of carrying debt. Large monthly obligations reduce flexibility. They influence career decisions, delay investing, increase financial stress, and limit your ability to respond to emergencies. A household with low fixed expenses has options. A household carrying large debt payments often has obligations that dictate every financial decision. Liquidity also matters. Every dollar committed to servicing debt is unavailable for emergencies, investing, or new opportunities. During periods of economic uncertainty, having available cash can be more valuable than owning highly leveraged assets. The hidden cost of debt isn't just the interest rate listed in your loan agreement. It's every opportunity that disappears because your future income has already been committed elsewhere. Understanding this concept completely changes how you evaluate borrowing decisions. This doesn't mean all debt should be avoided. There are situations where borrowing can absolutely accelerate wealth creation, but only when several conditions are met simultaneously. First, the borrowed money should be purchasing an asset with a reasonable expectation of producing returns that exceed the total borrowing costs over the long term. Second, the monthly payments should comfortably fit within your budget without reducing your ability to save and invest consistently. Third, you should maintain adequate emergency savings so unexpected expenses don't force additional borrowing. Successful investors don't borrow simply because they qualify for a loan. They borrow because the numbers make sense under multiple scenarios, not just the optimistic one. For example, someone purchasing a reasonably priced home with a manageable mortgage, stable income, sufficient emergency savings, and plans to remain there for many years may use debt effectively. Likewise, a carefully analyzed rental property with strong cash flow, conservative assumptions, and adequate reserves may justify leverage. The problem occurs when people begin with the assumption that any loan attached to an asset is automatically good. That's backwards. The asset must prove itself financially after accounting for every expense, every risk, and every realistic downside scenario. Debt should support your financial goals, not define them. Instead of asking whether debt is good or bad, start asking better questions. Does this loan improve my monthly cash flow or reduce it? Will this asset realistically outperform the total borrowing cost over time? Can I comfortably make these payments if my income changes? What opportunities am I giving up by committing future income to this loan? If this asset doesn't perform as expected, will my overall financial plan remain intact? These questions shift your thinking from emotional purchasing to strategic investing. The wealthiest individuals often aren't successful because they borrow the most. They're successful because they understand risk better than everyone else. They recognize that leverage is powerful, but only when used carefully, conservatively, and intentionally. Financial freedom isn't built by accumulating assets with borrowed money. It's built by creating strong cash flow, investing consistently, managing risk intelligently, and keeping enough flexibility to adapt when life changes. The next time someone tells you that a particular loan is good debt, remember this. Debt doesn't determine whether you'll build wealth. Your decisions do. Borrowing is simply a tool. Like any tool, it can build something valuably or cause expensive damage depending on how it's used. If this helped, like and subscribe to the Daily Yield because we are making real financial progress one step at a time.